Welcome to Uptown Radio. It's Thursday, April 10th. I'm your host, Una Milliken. Today on the show, New York mayoral candidates are backed by city matching funds, but the rules for the funding program can be kind of complicated.
If a New Yorker were to donate $10 to a participating candidate, we'd match it with $80 of government funds.
Flooding is a part of life for a town on an island, so the New York City Council is preparing a better warning system for residents.
You better get a canoe and put your boots on because I couldn't cross 9th Avenue. That's how bad the flooding was.
Women's sports are taking center stage, and so are clothes the athletes wear.
All of these high fashion brands and new fashion brands that are saying, hey, what does Coco Gauff wear off the tennis court? She represents fashion, and I can represent fashion too.
All this and our continued series of commentaries coming up.
In Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. U.S. markets ending another day deep in negative territory, pulling back much of yesterday's historic recovery that President Trump touted today in defense of his tariffs policy.
Everybody wants to come and make a deal, and we're working with a lot of different countries, and it's all going to work out very well. I think it's going to work out really very well, but we're in good shape. There's no inflation. There's very little inflation.
Well, stocks lost ground today despite a better than expected report on inflation. NPR's Scott Horsley reports investors are worried that President Trump's trade war could push prices higher in the months to come.
President Trump suspended steep new tariffs on goods from many countries this week, but he ordered even higher tariffs on goods from China. Economists say the net result is still a substantial burden that will be borne by U.S. consumers as the tariffs lead to higher prices in the months to come. The trade war with China is heating up just as price pressures in the U.S. had been easing. Annual inflation fell to 2.4% last month, thanks in part to a steep drop in gasoline prices. Egg prices continue to climb in March as farmers try to rebuild laying flocks that were hard hit this winter by avian flu. With Easter just around the corner, egg prices are up about 60% from this time last year. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The U.S. ambassador to Ukraine is leaving the post. The news coming as the Trump administration struggles to get Russia to agree to a ceasefire and as fighting continues in the region. We have more on this from NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
Career diplomat Bridget Brink has served as U.S. ambassador to Ukraine throughout Russia's full-scale invasion. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce confirms that Brink is returning home after 3 years.
During a time of war for those 3 years, an extraordinary performance there, and we wish her well.
Asked if Brink was pressured not to condemn recent Russian attacks in Ukraine, as she did before Trump came into office, the spokesperson says she wasn't aware of any such instructions. Bruce says the Trump administration is trying to end the war, and the U.S. will know soon if Russia is serious about diplomacy. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, Washington.
House Republicans narrowly passed a key budget blueprint today. The GOP now beginning the process of drafting a multi-trillion-dollar bill to enact President Trump's domestic priorities, including tax cuts, defense spending, and immigration restrictions. We are following reports of a helicopter crash in New York City's Hudson River. According to its account on X, the New York City Police Department confirms a crash. It also warns of emergency vehicles and traffic delays as a result. No official word yet on who was on board or the cause. From Washington, this is NPR News.
And here in New York,
Instead of submitting evidence for Columbia Radio News, I'm Flora Walshaw. Instead of submitting evidence to an immigration judge regarding the federal government's attempted deportation of activist Mahmoud Khalil, a brief memo signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio was submitted instead. The memo says that Khalil's action would compromise U.S. foreign policy interests, and therefore the federal government has the right to deport him. The letter was released by AP today, and this is the only piece of evidence submitted for the case. There is a hearing tomorrow to determine whether Khalil can continue to be detained during the remaining immigration proceedings. Attorneys for Khalil said the memo proved the Trump administration was targeting Khalil's free speech rights. President Trump said today that he is working on papers to withhold federal funding to all U.S. sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities, such as New York, provide legal refuge to undocumented immigrants. On a post on Truth Social earlier today, Trump said sanctuary cities, quote, protect the criminals, not the victims. Mayor Eric Adams and New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch have announced the formation of a new Quality of Life division of the NYPD. This division is made up of existing NYPD community roles, like neighborhood and youth coordination officers, and the mayor and police commissioner say it will improve police responses to issues specifically concerning quality of life concerns. This includes noise complaints, illegal parking, outdoor drug use, and homelessness issues. No need to hold in your bladder while you're out and about. Members of the City Council are voting today on a new bill that would expand the number of public bathrooms in New York City. They intend to double the amount of restrooms in the city to more than 2,100 and make it easier for New Yorkers to know where to go. So the plan includes a comprehensive online map of all city public bathrooms. And finally, spring may be here, but you still need to wrap up. Highs of 45 degrees today with a low of 31 degrees. For Columbia Radio News, I'm Flora Warshaw.
This week, the stock market saw historic turmoil as President Trump announced and then paused sweeping tariffs on global trade. The announcements came within a week of each other, and investors struggled to respond. Some even sold bonds, which are usually seen as a safe haven in times of uncertainty. I spoke with John Cochran, a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford. He says investors, large and small, are wondering how to proceed in the unpredictable world of Trump's tariffs.
Well, since the administration completely doesn't understand how tariffs work, you wouldn't be surprised if the average person is a little confused. For the moment, if you're afraid of short-term volatility, then of course you want to do something to protect yourself against short-term volatility. On the other hand, we can't all safeguard ourselves. The average investor has to hold the market portfolio. So it is not possible for all investors to hold less bonds or all investors to hold more stocks. A lot of people are trying to get rid of the risk. Other people are jumping in and taking that opportunity. So you got to decide, are you more or less optimistic than the average investor? Or maybe you think that, the tariffs are going to be way worse than the average investor. You have to take your bets about being different from the average person.
Do you think this is going to affect American investors long term? Is this making people nervous?
Yeah, it ought to be making the government nervous too. The old pattern where in times of volatility, people flock to U.S. Treasuries seems to be gone. And this happened in March 2020 as well. Time of big volatility, people were thinking, well, this is my liquid assets. I'll get rid of them because I'm going to need the money for something else. For whatever reason, people abroad are trying to sell Treasuries as well, which is why the yields are going up. That's bad for the U.S. Treasury. It reflects weakness in the U.S. economy. People abroad are saying, U.S. isn't such a great place to invest anymore. Not good for us.
Yeah, essentially it's like kind of signaling, like you said, a lack of trust in the American economy longer term. How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, either they're going to be right and the U.S. economy is headed down the toilet, or they're going to be wrong and things are going to get better. Now, right now, there's two parts of trust, I think, that merit exploration. Are we heading into a pretty severe recession and then a long period of kind of stagnant growth? That's what tariffs would do to you. And the second one is, for treasuries especially, is the U.S. government going to someday be able to pay back its debts? Or are we going to inflate them away, have a debt crisis, tax them away, something unpleasant to that? Take your bets. Is it going to be better or worse than the average person thinks?
Well, I think that the difficulty right now is people really don't know what the president is going to do next. Is there any way to prepare, or is there not really any way to kind of foresee the future?
So the very uncertainty of what's going to happen, I think, is a real drag on the economy right now. If you are going to build a factory, suppose you want to do what Trump, wants you to do, build a factory and make sneakers in the U.S., not in China anymore. Well, you need to know what the tariff is going to be when that factory is online, which is like 3 to 5 years from now. You have no way to know. So what the factory owner is going to do is just wait to see how it all shakes out. Well, if everybody trying to invest in the U.S. economy just sits tight and waits, you have a recession right there.
Is there anything else that you want to say about this issue that you think people should know about, or anything that you're like, I wish people would do this in the next 90 days so that they're prepared?
Well, especially, your focus is on investing. Mm-hmm. And so you invest for the long run, you buy stocks for the dividends. Sound investment strategy does not jump up and down based on the day's news, but stays steady and tries not to panic.
That was John Cochran, a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. Over the past few years, extreme flooding has seeped into the subways, left people stranded in their neighborhoods, and even caused fatalities. New York City Council will be presenting a bill that will amend the administrative code of the City of New York in relation to flash floods, preparedness, outreach, and evacuation guidance. Our reporter, Madeline Riley, has a story on how this affects New York City residents.
It's a sunny day here in New York City, but this weekend calls for rain, and rain can mean flooding, as Meatpacking District resident Jay can tell you. She remembers Superstorm Sandy.
Yes, I told you I tried to get to see my friends that live on 9th Avenue, and they told me, you better have a canoe, because I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then when I got to 9th Avenue, I'm like, crap, it was up to my knees. I couldn't cross over. I said, listen, I'll see you later.
Jay says there's the internet and weather apps that give out warnings, but people don't always pay attention, which can be risky. Andrew Kitchkavich is a researcher at Columbia University's Climate School.
Superstorm Sandy. Many areas of New York City were inundated, right? It wasn't just the Rockaways. It wasn't just parts of Staten Island. It was some of the estuaries in Brooklyn and Queens, even part of the Bronx, so there was many areas and those areas could be defined as at risk to storm surge flooding and inundation, for example.
A recent report from the Regional Plan Association finds that as many as 82,000 housing units in the city, Long Island, and Westchester could be lost to flooding, meaning difficult times for homeowners, renters, and landlords, as well as exacerbating the city's housing crisis. So today, New York City Council voted on a law to enhance public awareness to flash flooding. The law would put more focus on areas in the city that are at high risk for flooding. New York Emergency would distribute materials that would help residents in those areas prepare. Efforts would include in-person outreach and mailings.
And we are here today to vote on Intro 807A, sponsored by Council Member and Majority Whip Brooks Powers. Intro 807A would require New York City's emergency management, also known as NYSEM, to develop guidance for safe evacuation before flash flood emergencies, including information on when and how.
Kitchkavich says some areas that are more at risk for one type of flood, like flooding from rivers and sewage and draining systems, may not be at risk like other types.
New York City is prone to flooding. It's always been prone to flooding. What we're seeing recently is an evolution in flood risk across New York City. And what I mean by that is there are different types of floods that are occurring in New York City and the risk for different types of floods.
The legislation passed earlier today. Madeline Riley, Columbia Radio News.
Before watching your favorite athletes compete, you may have seen them walk down what's called a fit tunnel. That's a sports version of a fashion runway, where they can show off designer outfits. Now, there's a new trend hitting the fit tunnel. As Hannah Lorenzo reports, when pro women aren't in their uniforms, they're being styled by fashion brands.
During the WNBA playoffs last year, New York Liberty player Breanna Stewart rocked Dior for one of her fit tunnel looks. She has a sleek black outfit with a cap, loafers, and handbag to match. Her V-neck top even has the Statue of Liberty and the New York City skyline outlined in white. Here she is talking about her look with ESPN's Hannah Storm.
Oh my gosh, talk about homage to New York. So this is my Dior outfit. So cool. Basically Dior top to bottom, and then the New Yorker Nowhere hat.
Stewart is part of a growing trend. According to Statista, the women's sports apparel market is worth an estimated $40 billion globally, and fashion brands, the ones that don't specialize in activewear, want a piece of that. So more are looking to partner with women's sports teams, but not just by putting their logos on players' jerseys. Instead, they're styling players' entire looks. One example, the Gotham Football Club, which represents New York and New Jersey, has been working with Align, a UK designer. The brand styled Gotham's latest kit, which is the team's uniforms for this season. Laura Petro handles marketing for the team.
We decided to make this story more about, again, the styling, like how you would wear the kit in everyday life. And that's what led to the idea to partner with Align on the kit reveal.
Gotham posted scenes of that kit reveal photo shoot on the team's Instagram. In one video, upbeat music plays. You can see the players posed on the steps outside of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They're wearing jerseys in their team's signature sky blue color, and some players are even pairing them with matching denim.
what you ended up with was like, I think a really unique and kind of differentiated shoot where you saw, you know, the jersey, but styled with like trench coats and blouses underneath.
Petro says the partnership worked. Compared to last year, Gotham's kit sales increased. Even luxury fashion brands are getting involved. Prada is working with China's national women's soccer team. Together is a marketing and sales company focused on women's sports. Betsy Morgan is with the company. She says brands used to just focus on designing a team's kit.
You see brands on all sorts of kits, in many different sports. That's a very kind of traditional way for brands to advertise their business sort of through sport.
But Morgan says brands are getting more creative, like an apparel collection created by Together and Nike. It shows off Together's slogan, "Everyone watches women's sports."
People wear it with pride. They wear it in a little bit of a sort of mission-based way as a real statement piece. And it's really fun to go to lots of sporting events, not just women's sporting events, and see the shirt turn up.
Morgan says fashion brands can appeal to more than just sports fans. According to YPulse, a market research firm, almost 60% of females ages 13 to 39 in the U.S. are more likely to buy products from their favorite athlete, if the brands they partner with relate to their own style or values.
All of these high fashion brands and new fashion brands that are saying, hey, what does Coco Gauff wear off the tennis court? She represents fashion and I can represent fashion too.
After 3 years playing for the Gotham Football Club, Michelle Betos recently announced her retirement as goalkeeper. She says that sponsorships for athletes are changing.
Global brands are seeing that women's sports are on the rise, that if you want to make an investment that's going to do you well, it's going to be in women's sports.
The UK fashion brand Align's next chance to score big will be April 13th during Gotham's match against North Carolina Courage. Fans will have a chance to show off their own outfits, and as for the players, they'll show off their looks in the fit tunnel, styled, of course, by Align. Hannah Lorenzo, Columbia Radio News.
In today's commentary, ZJ Young recalls a creative collaboration that helped him better understand opera and himself.
I went to college at the University of California in Berkeley. One evening in late autumn, I was in my apartment, and I heard someone calling my name. I looked down from the balcony, and my friend Tom from the music department shouted up from the street, "Do you know what love is?" Tom was like that. People walking by turned to look. I called down, "What's wrong with you?" He shouted back, "Let's write a story about love." He came up and explained he recently read a collection of letters between the author of The Little Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and his wife Consuelo. Tom proposed that we collaborate on an opera based on the letters and the story of the Little Prince, how he embarked on a journey to find the meaning of love and return to his planet with his beloved Rose, even though it meant he had to endure the bite of a poisonous snake. I had never written an opera, but his passion was infectious, and I agreed. Over the next 6 months, he came to my apartment in the evenings and he wrote overnight. I sat on the keyboard, typing, and Tom at the piano. Once the song was finished, he sang it out loud. I clapped and sang along. Sometimes, very late at night, the neighbors knocked at the walls. We were tired too, and sometimes for a break, we'd go down to the street. On clear nights, the sky was starry and the moon was bright. We named the constellations and the zodiac signs. I told him about the bright dot at the side of the moon. It was the Venus. One time as we were walking on the street at night, I tripped over the curb. He grabbed my hand and held it for a moment. When we finished the opera, Tom suggested a walk in the Berkeley Rose Garden. The roses were wilted and faded in winter, but the sun setting over the ocean turned the petals gold. He handed me a copy of the script, and I opened it and saw the dedication. To his long-term girlfriend, and also to me. To ZJ, a friend that spent so much time with me exploring the story together. But my feelings towards him were more than a friend. When we worked through the nights, I feared the morning, when he packed the music scores in his bag, grabbed his olive green trench coat, and left. I had never felt attracted to a person of the same sex before. After the last rehearsal before the show, I asked him to stay with me backstage. I mumbled and stuttered and finally, in a light, joking tone, said, "You know, I really want to say I love you. The level of attraction, probably more than a friend." He responded. He appreciated the closeness and intensity of the collaboration, and he hoped we could work together again in the future. Through the process of writing the opera, I gained a greater understanding of what love is, and I realized that the attraction that I feel isn't limited by sexuality or gender. I understand I would and I can feel attraction to a person of the same sex. And maybe I needed to know that, to write a love story, an opera about love.
You're listening to Uptown Radio. There's more to come. Stay with us. You're listening to Uptown Radio. I'm Una Milliken. Next up, American artist Amy Sherrill's new show just opened up at the Whitney. And a personal story around the struggles with food and finding a new motivation. Later on in the show, high rent and streaming have made video rental shops almost obsolete, but a new store in Williamsburg is bringing back the hunt for physical media. These stories and more coming up. In a week and a half, some New York's mayoral candidates will find out if they qualify for the city's public matching funds program. The program is designed to level the playing field among candidates with access to big donors and those with less. But Mayor Eric Adams was denied this year. It's only the second time in the program's history this has happened in a mayoral race. So, what exactly is this program and how did it start? David Lawson lives in Astoria. He's 39 and recently went back to school to get his master's in arts administration. He's one of many New Yorkers participating in the matching funds program. He says he's a fan.
I do like to think of it as this leveler, as something that can make it so these candidates don't have to be so beholden.
Lawson says Assemblymember Zohar Mamdani has his vote for mayor. He likes Mamdani's proposal to create city-funded grocery stores and his push to expand a free bus ride program. So he says he gave $36 to Mamdani's campaign. Lawson says it's nice to know his money counts for a little extra.
And also, so someone like me giving $36 can really end up giving, a couple $100, which I am not in a position to comfortably give right now.
Here's how the program works. The city will match any donation from a voter, but that voter has to live locally. And donations from super PACs aren't matched. Candidates including city council, borough president, and mayor may apply. The program got its start back in 1988. New York City looked a lot different then. New Yorkers could still smoke indoors, the DVD hadn't been invented, and Ronald Reagan was president. At the time, former Mayor Ed Koch and City Council Speaker Peter Vallone were trying to push the program through. Vallone said the hardest part was convincing his fellow politicians to get on board. Here he is in an interview for LaGuardia Community College in 2012.
Because what you're basically saying is, look, why don't you do good government and pay for somebody to run against you? That's basic.
In 1988, the idea was pretty novel. Vallone had to essentially convince politicians currently in power to make it easier for their opponents to take their spots. So he leaned on an age-old strategy, flattery.
Because you're such a good council member that on a level playing field, you can't lose. I said, all you're going to be is on equal footing. He or she is going to have the same amount of money that you have.
Vallone succeeded that same year, and New York was the first major city to adopt this kind of program. It was included in a law called the Campaign Finance Act and was seen as a way to fight corruption. Insider deals, kickbacks, shady favors, bribes, and embezzlement were commonplace, not unlike the allegations against our current mayor, Eric Adams. which is why he's been denied from participating in the program this year.
A new challenge for Mayor Eric Adams. The city voted to withhold the use of taxpayer dollars on his re-election campaign.
Adams allegedly misused millions in campaign funds raised through the Public Matching Funds program. Tim Hunter is with the New York City Campaign Finance Board. He can't comment on current political races, but he says the act was originally created in the 80s to fight this kind of culture.
I mean, it started as a response to what was seen as, rampant corruption in New York City, and a series of reforms were enacted.
The act did several things. First, it established the New York City Campaign Finance Board, the one Hunter works for. It's nonpartisan and oversees and audits political funding. Second, it created the Public Matching Funds program. Back in the 80s, funds were matched 1-to-1. Today, candidates stand to make a lot more. Here's Hunter in a YouTube video explaining.
Here's how it works. For example, if a New Yorker were to donate $10 to a participating candidate, we'd match it with $80 of government funds.
But the criteria can be strict and the rules are complicated. For a mayoral race, candidates must have raised more than $250,000. And they have to have a minimum of 1,000 local donations to qualify. There's also a cap on how much candidates can receive. Currently, Zohran Mamdani is the only mayoral candidate to have reached it. He's now received $8 million in public funds. His biggest competitor, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, will find out if he's eligible for the matching funds program on April 15th. Una Milliken, Columbia Radio News. Painter Amy Sherald's new exhibition opened yesterday at the Whitney Museum in Chelsea. It's called American Sublime, and among other works, features the painting she is probably most famous for, her official portrait of Michelle Obama. The show is entirely portraits of African Americans, 40 in all. Maud Yaish visited the Whitney and has more.
On the street, just out the Whitney, is a billboard displaying a large work titled 4 Ways of Being. It depicts 4 black men, young, old, all different, and they are staring right at you. Not smiling, just looking. Nicole passes by the billboard as she heads into the Whitney. She says she loves that Amy Sherald portraits of African Americans reflect people who look like her and her family, especially at this historical moment.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure to not acknowledge race and identity and gender and culture, and I think the opposite. I think it is important to be who you are and to see it in the world.
Nicole also likes the lively color and how beautiful Sherald paints.
Her work is so exquisite. It just makes me feel more creative to go look at it, so I'm really looking forward to the show.
When you enter the exhibition, 5 portraits out of the 40 that make up the show welcome you. There are people you might see any day in New York City. A guy on the subway, a woman facing forward holding a camera. Each portrait pops against a bright, colorful backdrop. Purple, pink, red. In the video shown in the exhibition, Amy Sherald says she hopes that these larger-than-life portraits bring comfort to people, that they feel calm, grounded, centered.
I love beauty. I know beauty's a bad word, but I like to make things that make people feel good. And I think beautiful paintings are important. I say figuration is like the soul food of art making. It's like what takes you back home.
She adds that painting portraits of this size are very different from her past work.
Painting this large is very different from what I've always done my whole life. It's something that I'm still getting used to. Certain things have to be more exaggerated, like highlights have to be more exaggerated to still come to life.
Some of people she paints are extremely famous. Her portrait of Breonna Taylor, which appeared on the cover of Vanity Fair, is there. As is the official portrait of Michelle Obama. This simplicity is what draws Ilza, a very lively 70-year-old woman who is coming to the Whitney with her husband, and says she only knows Amy Sherald from her portrait of Michelle Obama.
I think that it's the very simplicity of it that's sort of, kind of in your face. Simplicity. You don't expect it.
Amy Sherald's exhibition, American Sublime, is on view at the Whitney until August 10. Modiaish, Columbia Radio News.
In the next of our series of personal commentaries, sometimes big life decisions come in clusters. When reporter Flora Warshaw planned to apply to Columbia Journalism School, she also confronted a hidden problem. A heads up to our listeners. This story discusses eating disorders.
The last time I was in New York for an extended period of time was a 2-month trip in the summer of 2022. Many of my friends had internships in the city, and I figured I wasn't doing anything else, so why not tag along? I climbed the white spiral staircase of the Guggenheim, danced until the sun came up and my feet were raw in a dodgy dive bar, sunbathed in Central Park until my skin tinted red. Yet all I really remember from that summer was I was hungry, really hungry. I was entering my second year of an eating disorder I wasn't even conscious of. It was just something I lived with. I made sure to never isolate myself from meals or events. I would still eat a burger or pizza for lunch. It just meant I wouldn't have dinner. I ignored comments from friends and family regarding my eating habits and weight. It felt simple, really. If you'd asked me then, I would have said I was my happy and bubbly self. Life was good. It was all under control. Yet while other 21-year-olds drifted off to sleep, imagining their dream boyfriends or holiday destinations, I would run through what I'd eaten that day and tally up the calories. My goal was a very specific and low number. It represented control and discipline, satisfaction in a dissatisfied life. I felt hunger pains, but I liked that feeling. It meant I was doing something correctly. It's hard now to remember exactly what caused me to base my self-worth on how little I was able to consume. I do know it started in lockdown. I had returned from a failed gap year trip to Madagascar, where I was a teased urban princess, confronted with picking cockroaches off her toothbrush every morning. Did I mention I had also just been dumped? 20 pounds heavier and miserable, I thought back to my thriving high school days. I was truly happy. I had a great social life, a boyfriend, plans on the horizon, so surely if I lost 20 pounds, I'd feel that true happiness once again. No one will be surprised to hear that my grand plan didn't work. I lost the weight and then some, but my body was so desperately trying to hold on to any source of energy. So if I were to go back to eating regularly, there would be an inevitable weight gain. I was stuck in an impossible cycle. That is, until a friend studying at the Columbia Journalism School snuck me in for a tour that New York summer. So for 1 hour on an excruciatingly hot July day, I wandered the quiet marbled floors. I gasped in excitement peering into audio recording booths, spotting microphones and mixing boards that I've now come to love. I remember taking a photo of the view from an upstairs classroom, a dazzling blue sky overlooking an Upper West Side skyline. I made it my lock screen. A permanent reminder whenever I glanced down that I had a purpose. I would go to journalism school. I would move to New York. I had a dream I could now focus on. It was like a little white light had gone off at the back of my head, because with that acknowledgement, I realized something had to change. If I wanted to apply to such a prestigious institution, I couldn't leave my university library at 3 p.m. every day because I was too tired and hungry to focus. The light bulb was dim, but with time, it grew. My grades were suffering and my genes were falling down. And so that following December, I drove home 8 hours from my university, walked into my family home and confessed everything I'd been struggling with for the past few years. When I finally said the words, "I think something is wrong," it was like I'd been holding my breath for 2 years and someone had finally given me permission to breathe. People think you never truly recover from an eating disorder, but I would beg to differ. Nearly 3 years, a nutritionist and a therapist later, I'm genuinely happy and bubbly, but now I'm healthy too. My friends know me for having a constant supply of Twizzlers and Starburst in my fridge. I'll wake my boyfriend up on a Sunday morning begging to go out for a bacon, egg and cheese. I don't want anyone to hear my story and pity me or look at me differently. That New York summer seems a distant memory, tinged with sadness for a girl I don't recognize. But even 3 years later, I'm reminded of her determination, and I'm happy to tell you more of her story over lunch.
Cultural spaces like bookstores, movie theaters, and record stores have all become less common in New York City. And many film lovers mourn the passing of video rental stores for the hunt of rare DVD or videotapes. But as Dana Benfett reports, a new store in Williamsburg is bringing the shopping experience back to film culture.
It's a rainy Saturday afternoon outside Night Owl Video on Grand Street in Williamsburg. New Yorkers from all over the city are lined up down the block for the store's sneak preview. It's been a while since they've been in a video rental shop. There are very few left in Manhattan, but they all have fond memories of the last time they rented a movie from a video store.
A League of Their Own and a Neil Breen movie. I don't know which one it was. It's the ones where he's playing twins.
A lot of like X-Men, the old X-Men cartoon, just like 3 or 4 episodes on a VHS.
I'd probably say the last thing that I rented was probably a Kate Hudson movie.
That's Frances Hill. She commuted from Long Island to meet up with her girlfriend at the preview. A few minutes later, she got into the store where it was packed.
It's super busy, it's crowded, but absolutely well-run store. I mean, they got their mom in there helping out, so you gotta love a family business, and it's a beautiful thing.
Especially if you're a cinephile. The inside is painted purple and yellow with retro movie posters on the walls alongside stacks of old DVDs and VHS tapes. Night Owl Video is the brainchild of friends and coworkers Aaron Hamill and Jess Mills. The duo met working in film distribution and have been dreaming about this day for a long time.
We're both passionate about physical media and felt that especially after the closing of Kim's Video and Videology after that no one was taking up the mantle, so we decided to stop waiting and do it ourselves.
There used to be 2 Kim's Video stores in downtown Manhattan, and Mills and Hamill remembered just how important the outlets were to film fans and filmmakers. The shops provided a place to gather and discuss their favorite films with a vast selection of rare cult classics, art films, and B-horror movies. Hamill hopes that Night Owl Video can do the same.
It's very important to us to sort of build up a community. I mean, my hope is to have a local filmmakers section on the shelves at some point.
Nelson Kim is a professor of film at Wagner College in Staten Island.
Public spaces like video stores, like record stores, the fact that it brings people together with this shared interest, this shared passion for the art form is a healthy thing.
He says these kinds of public gathering places are an invaluable part of film culture, especially in the age of streaming.
I think a lot of people will sort of instinctively laugh at and say, a video store in 2025? That's crazy. That's so obsolete. I think physical media still has a part to play. It's a healthy thing for the next generation of cinephiles to not grow up thinking of their love of film as a purely solitary online activity.
Co-owner of the store, Hamill, has spent years gathering old DVDs and VHS tapes. The store is full of movies from his personal collection, and the intention and care behind these hand-picked tapes are a big part of the rental store's appeal.
A lot of them actually also came from people who reached out to us on Instagram and just said, hey, I have this collection, or I know somebody who has a collection. And so that's been a fun part of it for me, has been going out and meeting the collectors and buying collections and stuff.
Over 500 people showed up for the sneak preview, and many of them left with their own rental selections.
We got Cleopatra Jones, RoboCop, the book, and the movie.
Oh yeah, I bought this Godzilla tape. Godzilla versus Megalon.
Picked up something with John Goodman that I'd never seen before, so here's a great way to find out about movies that you may have never really thought about or even thought to Google.
Night Owl Video officially opens for business in Williamsburg tomorrow. Dana Binfet, Columbia Radio News.
Well, that does it for this edition of Uptown Radio. We hope you enjoyed the show. Our foreman today was executive producer Hannah Weaver. Leading our staff of reporters was senior producer Dana Benfett. Special thanks to our senior editor Joya Ma and assistant editor ZJ Young. Director Hannah Lorenzo coordinated our studio production with Caroline McCarthy. Thanks to our newscaster Flora Warshaw and our day reporters Madeline Riley and Maud Yesh. Our instructors Sally Herships, Ben Shapiro, advise our staff. I'm your host, Una Milligan. Uptown Radio is live on Thursdays at 4 and anytime at uptownradio.org. From all of us here at Uptown Radio, thanks for listening.